Across Africa, a silent financial revolution is shaking the very foundation of global trade. For decades, the world's economic heartbeat pulsed through one currency, the U.S. dollar. Every nation, every deal, every commodity, priced in green. But that era is coming to an end. From Cairo to Cape Town, from Lagos to Nairobi, African nations are tearing down old systems built to keep them dependent and replacing them with something far more powerful, their own financial future. Africa's $2 trillion banking revolution has begun, and it's sending shockwaves through Washington, Wall Street, and the global markets that once controlled the continent's fate. Just a few years ago, the idea that African countries could trade with each other in their own currencies sounded impossible. But today, that dream is no longer a fantasy. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, or PAPSS, has become a game-changer. Developed under the African Continental Free Trade Area, the world's largest free trade zone, PAPSS allows African businesses to pay each other directly without converting into U.S. dollars. No more waiting for foreign banks. No more losing money in exchange fees. No more dependency. For the first time in history, Africa is building a unified financial ecosystem by Africans for Africans. And that's exactly what's terrifying the West. Because when African countries trade and settle payments internally, in Naira, Shilling, or Rand, it means less demand for U.S. dollars. Less demand for the dollar means less power for America. Washington has long used the dollar as a weapon, a tool of influence, of control. But Africa is now saying enough. This movement isn't just about money, it's about sovereignty. In Egypt, the government is investing billions into fintech innovation, building new banking infrastructure that connects directly to regional trade partners. In Kenya, mobile money platforms like M-Pesa are redefining what banking means, giving financial access to millions who never had it before. In Nigeria, digital banks like Flutterwave and Paystack are expanding beyond borders, empowering small businesses to send and receive money instantly across Africa. And in Southern Africa, nations are linking their banking systems directly, bypassing the old SWIFT networks once dominated by Europe and the US. This isn't just modernization, it's liberation. Experts call it the next big leap in global finance. Africa is now home to some of the fastest-growing fintech ecosystems on the planet, collectively valued at over $2 trillion. More than 500 fintech startups have emerged across the continent, from Ghana to Rwanda, from South Africa to Senegal. These startups aren't just catching up, they're leapfrogging old systems entirely. Imagine a farmer in Uganda selling coffee to a buyer in Ghana and getting paid instantly, directly in Ugandan shillings. No dollars, no foreign banks, no middlemen. That's the power of PAPSS. And it's happening right now. But let's be clear, this isn't just about convenience. It's about power. For years, the West, especially the U.S. and France, controlled Africa through monetary dependence. The dollar dictated trade, the franc dictated finance, and the IMF dictated the rules. But as Africa grows stronger, that control is slipping away. When COMESA launched its regional digital payment system, it wasn't just a financial tool. It was a declaration of independence. When the East African community started developing its own digital currency framework, it wasn't just innovation, it was rebellion. The numbers tell the story. Africa's digital finance transactions are projected to reach $2.5 trillion by 2030, growing faster than any region on Earth. More than 70% of all adults in some African countries now use digital payment systems. And cross-border trade within Africa is set to increase by over 50% in the next 5 years. These numbers are rewriting the rules of global economics. For the US, this is a nightmare scenario. Every dollar that doesn't move through American banking channels is a dollar that escapes Washington's influence. And every African country that trades in local currency is one step closer to true economic freedom. That's why this revolution isn't being covered widely in Western media. It challenges the entire system that the U.S. built its empire on. Meanwhile, Africa's central banks are quietly building reserves in gold, yuan, and even digital currencies, diversifying away from the dollar. Nigeria and Ghana are exploring central bank digital currencies, giving them faster, independent ways to manage liquidity. Kenya's and South Africa's central banks are joining global pilot projects for digital currency settlements. It's all part of a massive, coordinated movement, one that's reshaping global finance from the ground up. But here's what makes Africa's rise so extraordinary. It's not just happening in boardrooms or government offices. It's happening in villages, farms, and cities, through ordinary Africans building extraordinary systems. Young African innovators are designing blockchain platforms to trace trade. Small businesses are connecting across borders through mobile money apps. And governments are finally working together to create continental-level solutions. For the first time, Africa is not following the world is following Africa. And the ripple effects are massive. As African trade becomes more internalized, U.S. exports to Africa have already fallen by over 40% in the past decade. Meanwhile, Africa's trade with Asia and within itself has exploded, reaching record highs. Even Western corporations are quietly adjusting, investing directly in African fintechs because they see the writing on the wall. If they don't join the revolution, they'll be left behind. This $2 trillion transformation isn't a future dream. It's the present reality. And it's only accelerating. By 2030, Africa's population will surpass 1.7 billion people, most of them young, tech-savvy, and financially active. This generation doesn't trust old systems built overseas. They're creating new ones, right at home. That's why the dollar's decline in Africa isn't just economic. It's generational. It's cultural. It's personal. Africans are rewriting the story of money. The symbolism is powerful. For decades, African nations had to beg for loans from Western institutions. Now they're refunding their own growth through regional partnerships, digital innovation, and homegrown capital. Countries like Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Kenya are leading the charge with smart investment strategies and strong local industries. North Africa is integrating more deeply with West Africa, and the entire continent is becoming a single, unified market. The days of fragmented economies are over. The age of the African financial powerhouse has begun. So what does this mean for the global order? It means the balance of power is shifting permanently. As Africa strengthens its banking systems and adopts its own currencies for trade, the West loses one of its last major levers of control. When trade and finance no longer flow through the dollar, global influence no longer flows through Washington. That's why U.S. economists are watching this trend closely. Because if Africa succeeds, and all signs show that it will, the global financial system could experience one of the biggest power shifts since World War II. But for Africans, this isn't about destroying the old system. It's about building a fairer one. A system that reflects their labor, their resources, their creativity, not someone else's currency. For too long, Africa was the world's bank account, not its banker. Now it's both. The continent that once supplied the world with resources is now supplying it with ideas. And those ideas are worth trillions. The future is being written in African code by African engineers with African currencies. And no amount of Western pressure can stop it. Because this isn't just economics, it's evolution. As one African leader said recently, we no longer need permission to grow. We're building our own system, and the world will have to catch up. This is Africa's $2 trillion revolution, a new financial dawn. A movement that's breaking the chains of dependence. And a message to the world. Africa is not the future. Africa is the now.